Hello. It's now just over a week after Easter, and I've been thinking about the accounts of the first Easter in the Bible, in the New Testament, uh, the accounts of the resurrection appearances, we might say. Um, because the four Gospels all end rather differently and all have something to tell us. I don't think we should be too alarmed about this. After all, we should remember that the Gospels were written down at least 30 years after Jesus died and rose again, perhaps later. In 30, even though we're going through life-changing events at the moment, in 30 years' time, if you ask four of us what was most significant about those months in spring 2020, you get four different answers. And if you asked everyone who'd been affected, you'd get thousands of different answers. Not accounts of different events, but different emphases or takes on them. Although the four Easter accounts all end quite differently, they start, in a sense, with some convergence or some parallels. We might call this the foundational Easter morning story. One of the things in my house study is called a synopsis. It's something I've had a long time since I was a student. It's getting a bit bashed around the edges. And this lays out for us the gospel stories in parallel. And when we look at what happened on that first Easter morning, we can see some parallels and some differences. All four Gospels agree that it was a woman or women who went to the tomb first, early on the first day of the week. In John's Gospel, it's just Mary Magdalene, and in the others, it's a group of women who are going with the intention of laying spices on the tomb. All four accounts mention the stone. In Mark's Gospel, the women are concerned about how the stone will be moved so that they can get in to anoint the body. In Luke and in John, the woman or women just simply find the stone has been moved. In Matthew's, we have this dramatic account of an earthquake and the angel of the Lord descending and moving the stone. In all the Gospels, the women see that the body is not there. And here there are a number of differences between them. In Matthew and Mark and Luke, the women encounter someone or some people, an angel, a young man, two angels, who speak to them and tell them that Jesus is raised. In Matthew and Mark, these angels point the women towards future appearances or meetings with the disciples in Galilee. In John's Gospels, there's no story of meeting with angels, but rather the significant detail about the layout of what's going on in the tomb, about grave clothes, which is absent from the other stories. There's a bit of divergence now in what the woman or women do next. Famously, in Mark's Gospel, the women are too afraid at this point to do anything, and the Gospel, at least the best texts of the Gospel, stop abruptly there. In Matthew, the women go towards to tell the disciples, and we will find out in a later story that they meet Jesus along the way. In Luke's Gospel, the women go to find the disciples, but they do not believe them and think it is an idle tale. In John's Gospel, Mary goes to find two of the disciples to come step into the tomb and believe. So in the kind of key Easter morning story, we have here a number of differences, but really what I want to emphasize is the different responses to this exciting news, ranging from fear to disbelief on the disciples in Luke's Gospel to faith. We should remember that all these people who come to the tomb, either immediately or as a follow-up to women, eventually do believe. This is not a question of ultimately belief or unbelief. This is a story about the process by which these witnesses come to believe. There are different stories or trajectories or circumstances, perhaps as different characters. They need to have the truth presented to them in different ways and at different times. And we are the same too. We live in a world full of complications and difficulties, and at the moment beset by troubles and fear. And yet God offers us hope in the risen Jesus, who rose then and is for us now. And whether you believe firmly or tentatively with doubt, you can still follow that journey traced by the first disciples of walking with the risen Jesus and believing more and more on him each day.